Welcome everyone. This is Mylio's Face Recognition and Geotagging webinar. My name is JC Figueroa. I'm the customer champion at Mylio, and I will be presenting for you today. Here's what we're going to be talking about. Very simple. We're going to be talking about face recognition and face tagging, and we're going to be talking about manually geotagging your photos for those photos that have not been already tagged. So let's start with face recognition and tagging. Now, for those of you that are completely unfamiliar with the face recognition or the face tagging function or Mylio, let me just quickly go over to the Mylio app. And I think everybody knows how Mylio works. We have all of these views up here on the top left corner of the screen. Right now, we're in calendar view, where it's the place that Mylio helps you find photos based on date and time. So when the photo was taken. We're going to be talking about the map function a little later on when we talk about geotagging. This is where Mylio helps you find photos based on where they were taken using GPS data that's embedded in the photos. And the one we want to talk about is the people view. And in people view, Mylio creates this albums of different people in your life, people that you feel are important in your life. And it keeps finding photos of those individuals based on face recognition. When you first start Mylio, this is completely empty, and all you have is this corner view that says Untagged. And then using Mylio, you can start creating an album for each person. So I have a lot of people that I have tagged in my album. And if I start scrolling down, I can go down here to the letter J and find my personal album with my own photos. There it is, JC. Mylio tells me that there's 3,764 photos of me in there. And it has a little question mark saying there's some photos that need confirmation, 110 to be exact. That represents photos that Mylio has found that it believes are photos of JC, but it needs confirmation. So how these albums get created is really easy. You do it by doing face recognition. Mylio will identify a face and it will let you enter the name of that person. Once you enter the name, that album gets created. And anytime Mylio finds faces that it believes belong to that person, it includes them in that album. So let me show you how that works. We're going to start by going into the untagged grouping in the top left corner of the Mylio people view. So we're in people view, and if you don't have any faces tagged, all you're going to see is this untagged group. And I'll show you the number of faces that it has found, because Mylio is still recognizing the faces. It just doesn't know what names to apply to them. So when we open that group, it'll show me a bunch of faces. And notice that there's little question marks underneath each face. And that's Mylio basically saying, I don't know who this faces belong to. Give me their names. And from here, all you have to do is enter the name of the individuals. And I'm trying to find a face that it's new, that we don't have, that for which I already don't have an album, so that you can see when I enter their name, that album gets created. But these are all faces that I already added. Okay, here's one. So here's a photo that is not actually a person. When I click the face recognition album, because there's things that look like a face in Mylio, it believes that this is a person. So I can click the name Lego Leah. Here's another one. That one I think is supposed to be Han Solo. So I could say Lego Han Solo. So all I have to do is enter the name that I want. And then I have to hit return. The moment I hit return, this new person window comes up, and I just have to click the create button if everything's correct, and Mylio will create that person. Now, if I just type the name, but don't hit return and I move away, that person didn't get tagged. That grouping or that album for that person did not get created. So keep in mind, the first time you're creating a group, the first time you're tagging any individual's face, and you type their name, and I'm going to call this one Lego and Solo, you have to hit enter. hit return on your keyboard. That's when this new person window comes up. It lets you confirm the name and last name, and then you hit create. Now, if I go back, hitting the back button, and I get to the top level of my people view, I can go to the letter L here. Not quite there. So there's Lego Han Solo and Lego Leia. That's the two people that I just created. Now, those are not really people. I don't really want to tag these photos in my library. I don't want to have these groupings in my library. So for anything that you have in your library, for any groupings of people that you've created that you don't really want, you can simply select that group and hit delete on your keyboard or hit the trash can in Mylio, and those names are going to get deleted. So I'm going to do that for these two because these are not real people. And the photos are still in my library. I'm not deleting the photos. I'm simply deleting that grouping, that face tagging of that person. So that is how we get started. But let's step back a little bit and talk about some of the differences between the activities that you can do in Mylio. There's a big difference between tagging and confirming, right? Tagging is what you do manually the first time that you find a few photos of a particular individual. That is what we call face tagging, because you're teaching Mylio who that photo belongs to, who that face belongs to. And that's what I just showed you. That's where you enter the name, you hit return, you confirm that new person's album gets created. You have just tagged a face. And all you have to do is tag a few faces, usually between 3 and 5 faces. Will teach Mylio enough about the facial aspects of an individual so that face recognition kicks in and Mylio starts grouping all the photos of that person in that album that you just created. Now, validating the face recognition findings is what we call confirmation. So there's a difference between tagging a face and confirming a face. So when I go back to Mylio here, let's go back to my, actually there's one that should have some new faces here. There's my daughter's album. So the first time I started using Mylio, I tagged a handful of faces of my daughter. Mylio then found all of her photos, regardless of her age. And anytime that new photos for my daughter come up, Mylio adds them to that album and it puts them in the proposed category. So notice that I'm in people view. I'm double clicking in her album. And once I'm in her album, at the very top of that screen, I have 3 options. I can see all of the photos that are part of the album. I can see just the photos that have been confirmed by a human being, me in this case, or the proposed photos, photos that Mylio has found of my daughter that is fairly certain is my daughter's face, but it wants a human to provide confirmation. So that's what the proposed aspect is. And all I have to do is look at these photos and I just click the green check mark and then that photo is confirmed. If one of these photos was incorrect, like for example, if this wasn't Madeline, I could select a different name or even type a new name. But these are all correct. So I can just select all. I can select all from the edit menu here and click select all. Or I can do it with the keyboard. If you're on a Macintosh, you hit the command and the letter A. If you're on a Windows machine, you hit the control key and the letter A. Once you have them all selected, you can click on any of the green boxes and all of the photos of Madeline would be confirmed. So let's do that right now. Now I don't have any unconfirmed photos for this person. They are all confirmed. And when I step out, there's no longer going to be a question mark next to her name because all the photos have been confirmed. The more photos you confirm, the better the Mylio algorithm gets at identifying a person and putting them in the correct album. Sometimes Mylio makes mistakes. Let's see if we can find one here. I think I saw one earlier. I was looking at my niece, Alexandra. Mylio has 2 proposed faces here. One of them is actually her, but this one is not her, it's her cousin. It's my son, Gabriel. So If I were to confirm that under her name, I would be teaching the Mylio algorithm the wrong person. Instead, I'm going to click the question mark and say, that is actually Gabriel. And notice Mylio gives you its best guesses as to who this person is. Interestingly enough, they're all cousins, all the people that it named. But we're going to click on the right name here, Gabriel. And then this is indeed Alexandra. So we're just going to click the green check mark. So again, the more photos you confirm, the better Mylio gets at recognizing those photos. So that is the difference between tagging a photo. Tagging is the first time you create that person's album. And confirming a photo is just validating the findings that Mylio has found for you. All right, let's keep moving on. So there's two ways in which we can do this face tagging, right? One is single mode, and the other one is batch mode. Single mode, you kind of already saw it. I'm going to go back to it. If I go to any photos that are untagged, and I'm going to sort these photos by descending date. So the newer photos are on the top. So if I go into a photo here and I click the face tagging icon, the face tagging icon is always on the right side of the screen along with all the other commands. So look for the face tagging icon. When I'm looking at a single photo, what we say single photo view, where only one photo is on the screen, the face tagging and face recognition icon shows one person with a little square around them. If I click that on, then Mylio puts circles or ovals around the faces of the people that it's found. And then it gives me the chance to tag or confirm those faces. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to give you the best guess as to who that person is. In this case, the top guess is correct. That is indeed Alex. So I could just click on that name and to confirm it, or I can hit the number 1 on the keyboard. And using the keyboard number keys, those shortcuts make it really, really fast. You can go through a lot of photos very, very quickly. So I'm just going to click, that's Alex. And notice what Mylio did is it just moved to the next photo because Madeline had already been confirmed. I just confirmed her a little bit ago when we went into her grouping and we confirmed all her photos. So her photo had already a confirmation on it, but now I'm in this other grouping and now Mylio showed me the face of somebody here in the background. That is not somebody that I know. It's not somebody that I need to create a group for. So in this case, I'm going to choose ignore or the number 0 because this is not a person for whom I want to create an album. And when you do that, anytime that face comes up, Mylio is going to continue to ignore it. Now there's Alex again. So instead of using the keyboard, I'm going to hit the number 1 on the keyboard. Now it went to this other person here. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing knowing which face Mylio is referring to. Like here, you might think that it's looking at this circle. You'll notice that the circle around the face that Mylio is focused on is slightly brighter white than the other ones. Another thing that you can do is you can zoom in on a photo and then it becomes much more clear what face Mylio is thinking about. And I zoomed in with my trackpad, but down here in the bottom right corner of the screen is the zoom bar. So this is where you can zoom in. Madeline is already confirmed. This is not a person that I know, so I'm going to ignore. And then Mylio went to the last face, which again is a face that I don't know. So I'm also going to ignore that one. So this is how Mylio goes in single photo view and lets you tag or confirm faces one at a time. Now, there's also a batch mode, which is much, much faster. So I'm stepping all the way back to the top of the people view. I'm going to click on that untagged group again. Now, instead of looking at photos one at a time, I'm not in single photo view. I'm in grid view, meaning I can see a group of photos at the same time. You'll notice that the face recognition icon is slightly different. Instead of being one person with a square, there's 2 people standing next to each other with the little square. And if you hover over it, it says batch tagging instead of face recognition. So I'm going to click on batch tagging. And this takes you into bash tagging mode. And bash tagging mode is super powerful because instead of you looking at one photo at a time, Mylio lets you work on all the photos that can be seen on the screen at once. And what it does is it starts grouping people's faces based on the names that it thinks it has. So it thinks it has a bunch of photos of me. That's JC right there. So it's showing me all those photos and it's asking me to confirm whether these photos are correct or not. And I don't have to go to every single photo. All I have to do is click the approve button up here. Now, if any of these were incorrect, I could either correct it with the right person, or I could reject that suggestion by Mylio. And Mylio would go, okay, that's not JC. I better go find who this face really belongs to. Now, when I click approve, Mylio is going to approve all the photos that are visible on the screen. So if I were to zoom in and I have fewer faces or fewer photos presented on the screen, when I click approve, fewer photos get approved. It just goes in batches. I can create a bigger batch by zooming out. And when I do that, I can move through the grouping of photos much faster. And one thing you might notice is that as I approve more faces, the number of untagged faces in my Mylio library becomes smaller. So let me explain that a little better. I'm going to step back here to the people view. So the untagged faces are the ones that are in that grouping on the top left corner. Mylio right now is telling me there's 728 faces that it has found for which it doesn't have a name. When I double click on that, and then I click the bash tagging button, it takes me into bash mode. It shows me what it thinks are all these photos of Anthea. That one is incorrect. If I double click on that, Anthea is not there. That's actually me. So I could correct that by starting to type the right name. But now if I go to Anthea again, the rest of the photos are correct. Those are all Anthea. So I can just hit approve. Here's a bunch of photos that it has of my mom. Most of them are correct, except for this one in the middle. So I'm going to say, no, that's not correct. I'm going to reject that one, but the rest are correct. So I'm going to approve that. Here's photos of my son. Those are all correct. That is not Damon at all. So those are completely wrong. So I'm going to reject those. Now, if I step back and I look at that grouping, you'll notice that I went from 786 to 711. So the more faces you confirm, the smaller that number gets. And all we're doing is we're working from either on single, you go one face at a time, or you go in bash mode where Mylio shows you a person and all the photos of that person that it has found, and you approve them or reject them or correct them. Now, we've been doing everything here right in the people view, but face recognition works in any view. I don't have to be in people view for this to work. I can go here to all photos. I can ask Mylio to go into bash mode here, and it'll still show me all the photos in bash mode of the people that it thinks is found, right? So there's a bunch of photos of Jeannie. They're all correct. I can approve them. I can also, if I exit out of bash mode, by the way, you exit out of bash mode by hitting this big X. I can go to a different view. For example, I can go to a folder. And if I only want to make sure that I have face tag all the photos from a specific grouping, I can just go to that grouping and work only on those photos in that group. So I can go to a folder. I'm going to go to folder here for a trip. My wife and I just went on a trip recently. So I can go to this folder, and if I open that folder and launch bash tagging, now Mylio is only going to show me photos from that folder. So I should be able to go through these faces much more quickly because it's only showing me photos that belong to that folder, to that grouping. It's not looking at my entire library. So the same thing works with single face tagging. So I could go here into one photo, and I'm not in people view, I'm in the folder, but I can still go through each photo and identify the faces on them, and then move to the next photo. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that Mylio recognized one face with a mask, but it didn't recognize me. And this sometimes happens. Sometimes you don't have enough features, or the angle in which the photo was taken makes it so that the face recognition algorithm doesn't realize that there's a person there. I could manually tag this face by simply clicking and holding the mouse button. I have to be in face recognition modes. In other words, the face tagging button has to be turned on, but I can just now click here on my face. Instead of a circle, I get a square. Mylio says, who is this? I start typing my name. And now that face has been manually tagged. You can do the same thing on your phone or on your tablet by tapping and holding on top of the location that you want. So if you have a photo where you just see the back of somebody's head, but you want to recognize that that person is in the photo, you can just tap and hold and do a manual face tag. All right. So let's go back here to our list and make sure that we've covered everything. We talked about tagging versus confirming. We enter new names or people. We validated face recognition findings that Mylio was proposing. We cover single and batch modes. We talked about the fact that you can work from any view. You don't have to be in people view to invoke the face recognition or batch tagging command. You simply click on the icon. We just did a manual tag, and then rescanning faces. Okay, so remember earlier how we were looking at photos of my daughter, and I believe her fiance Alex was in the photos as well. And when we were in that photo, there were a bunch of faces that we ignore, right? Now, let's say that you change your mind and you realize, oh, wait, no, this is my friend. I do want to recognize that face. Well, you could ask Mylio to rescan the faces on that photo so that it gives you the chance to tag them again. You can do that in one of two ways. If you're on a computer, you can right-click on the photo and then choose the Rescan Faces command. You can do the same from the action menu, which is at the bottom right corner of the screen, and the Rescan Faces command is right there. So if you're on your phone or on your tablet where you cannot right mouse click, you simply use the action menu and then you click Rescan. And now Mylio is rescanning those faces. There it goes. Now it rescanned and it found a bunch more faces that I had already ignored. So now I'm going to have to go through the process of ignoring all those faces again. But if you make a mistake, don't worry, you can recover from that mistake by asking Mylio to rescan for faces. There were a lot of faces in this photo, so it was a really good example. All right, and that's face tagging. Now we want to move on to geotagging photos. And again, let me go to the map view in Mylio. And this is the view where Mylio shows me my library of photos based on where the photo was taken. I see these small icons with groupings of photos that represents all the photos that were taken in a certain location. How do the photos get presented in this map? Well, Mylio does it mostly automatic when the photo itself has GPS or geotag data in it, right? If you take a photo with your smartphone or you take a photo with a camera that captures GPS data, that data is embedded in the photo's metadata. And Mylio reads that data and says, okay, this photo was taken in Chicago, let me put it there. This photo was taken in Hawaii, let me put it there. For photos that don't have GPS data, for example, photos that were taken with a camera that doesn't capture that information, or perhaps photos that you scan from a paper photo, those photos are not automatically going to be presented in the map, but you can add them easily by using the facilities in Mylio to do so. Now, before I show you how to do that, I want to explain the 3 different views of maps in Mylio. So one of the things here in my list is the 3 maps in Mylio, and I want to explain that. When I go to map view, which is where I am right now, if I double click on that view, I get the big map where my entire view is just a map, and I can, I can zoom in on this map. I can scroll around. I can see different areas. And obviously, when I have a lot of photos, like notice there's 10,000 photos there in near Seattle. It's where I live, so it's where I take the most photos. So the more I zoom into that area, the more detail I get. Another aspect of the map view is that if I go to the view menu, and for those of you that don't know the view menu is the three little vertical dots on the top right corner of the screen. When I click on the view menu, I get different options depending of what is on my screen at the time. In this case, I'm on my map view. So one of the options is the map style, what kind of map I'm looking at. And I can have a standard map, I can have a satellite view of my map, or I can have a topographical map. And they all have their advantages and disadvantages. I like the topographical map a lot because I can go into an area where I've done a hike and I can see the contour lines and the elevation. And Mylio shows me even the trail that I was following. So along the trail, I can see all the photos that I took. So this map views are pretty useful. All right, so this is the regular map. Let's change the view back to a standard map style instead of a topographic map. So this is the main map. Now there's two more maps. If I open the details panel in Mylio, which I can do by clicking on these two little arrows that are immediately below the view menu, this is where I get detailed information about my photos, right? The first step is information. I don't have any photos selected, so Mylio is just showing me information about what I'm seeing on the screen. It says there's 20,640 photos in Mylio that have GPS data. If I click on a specific grouping, it tells me there's 8 photos in this location. If I click on a specific photo, it gives me the information it has about that photo. In this details view, there's another map. You'll notice the second tab here is the map. So from here, right now it's not showing me a map because I'm in map view, but if I went to a specific group of photos and I click that map, now it shows me a smaller version of the map, and whatever's on screen is going to present here. So it's showing me that there's 1 photo over here and 7 photos over there. And this photo really belongs with the other photos. So I could just grab that and drag it over here and correct the grouping there. But this map is going to be really important because it's the map that gives me the ability to work both with photos and a map at the same time. And I can click this arrow and I can kind of split my screen between the map view and the regular big map. So that's 2 maps. There's a map view, there's the map in the info panel. If I go to any particular photo, so if I go here to 1 photo and I look at info and I scroll down, you'll notice that there's a tiny little map under the places information in the info panel. So that's the 3rd map. This map is not as interactive as the other 2 maps, but it still shows you where that photo was. And it gives you, for example, the coordinates of where this photo was taken. And that's going to come in handy in a little bit because we're going to use it to tag a bunch of other photos. All right, so those are the 3 different maps in Mylio. Map view is at the very top. When I'm looking at some photos, I can use the details panel mini map. And if I'm looking at 1 photo, and go to the info panel, there is a places metadata set that shows me information about the photo that I have selected and where that photo was taken. Okay, so now that I know all this information about the different kinds of maps, let's use this to our advantage. So in map view, you'll notice that Mylio gives me a button here on the bottom left corner of the screen that says view Untagged. That is going to take me to all the photos in my library that do not have GPS data on them. So if I click that button, I have all the photos that need GPS data. And I can scroll through these photos. There's 14,000 of them. So I have a lot of work to do to get all my photos geotagged and presented in the map correctly. right off the bat, I can see that some photos here of my son were taken at our old home. So I can click select the photos for which I know that location. These are all photos that were taken at our old house. That one. Okay. I have all those photos selected. I'm going to click the map tab in my info panel or in my details panel. And I'm going to split the screen so that I have more space. And now I'm going to try to find the location of my home, of my old house. It's in Bainbridge Island. So I'm going to type that location. Mylio finds it right there. There's Bainbridge Island. And I know where in the island I used to live. So I'm just simply going to zoom to that part of the map. So right there on the corners of Blakely and Baker Hill is where my home used to be. So all I have to do is grab these photos and drag them exactly to that location. And then Mylio gives me the option to cancel by hitting the red X or to confirm by hitting the green X. And the moment I do now, those 10 photos are part of that grouping. And I can continue down the line and tag all the photos that I need that are also not tagged. If I go back to the map view and I click on tag again, the number of photos has been reduced by that amount and it's no longer showing me the photos I already tagged. And one important thing to remember, Mylio will allow you to geotag not just photos, but documents and videos. So here's 2 videos that I know were taken during my college days. And here's a couple of photos of my graduation. These were all taken in Athens, Ohio. So I can open the map view and split the screen again and type Athens, Ohio. That's where I went to school. It centers there on the town. And I don't remember exactly where these photos were taken or how to precisely put them like in the convention center where the graduation happened. So I'm just going to drag them to the center of town because at least I have a general location for them now. So there I just geotagged 2 photos and 2 videos, and those are now not part of my untagged photos anymore. If I look at my untagged photos, those are no longer part of the group. So very quickly, you can go through and add locations to all your photos, regardless of where that photo was taken. Now, sometimes when we are looking at photos, we don't have an idea of where that photo was taken. Like, for example, when I go scuba diving, I don't always know where the photo was taken. Cameras don't capture GPS data underwater. So oftentimes what I will do is I will take a photo with my phone of the location where I was. And then I use the information from the photo I took with my phone before I went diving, use that GPS data and apply it to all the other photos. So if I wanted to apply GPS data to some of these underwater photos here, I would just select the photo and ask Mylio to show me that photo in the calendar. And when I do that, Mylio is going to take me to that day, the day in which I took the photo. And here is a photo on the same day that was taken with my phone. If I scroll down here to the places information for that phone photo, you'll notice that the coordinates for where the boat was located at the time are right here. So I can copy those coordinates just using the copy command in my computer. You can do the same with an iPad or an iPhone, with a tablet or a mobile phone. So now I could look at all my photos that were taken on the same day and geotag them with the same location because I know that's where I was when these photos were taken. And one of the things that Mylio will show you with the view menu is these things called annotations. And one of the annotations is GPS data. Notice that I have it turned on. When I have a GPS data annotation turned on, notice that Mylio puts a little pin mark on photos that have GPS data, but the photos that don't have GPS data don't have that information. So I know that all these photos right here don't have GPS data. So I'm just going to select a whole bunch of them. I'm going to stop right there. Obviously, then we went on land, so those no longer apply. And I'm going to simply, on the information panel, so that third little map location, I have the GPS coordinates box there. I'm going to paste the GPS coordinates there. I hit enter. Mylio says, okay, you want to apply this GPS location to 32 media? And I say, absolutely, I do. So now those photos have been geotagged to the exact location where that initial iPhone photo that had GPS data was taken. So if I go to my map view now, and I go, this was in the Galapagos Island, I can just search for the location, Galapagos. Mylio takes me there. And if I zoom in here, now those photos that I took appear in the pretty accurate location where the dive took place. So that is another way in which you can geotag photos using coordinate tagging. And that was the next subject. So we've covered the three maps in Mylio, the big map, the mini map, and then the places map, which is the information panel. We covered drag and drop tagging, where you just drag your photos from a regular view into the map, tap in the details panel. We covered coordinates tagging, which you do by copying and pasting coordinates into one or more photos. And the coordinates can come from anywhere, right? You can go into Google Maps on a browser and find the coordinates of a location because you know where that photo was taken, and then copy and paste those locations to the photo. So you can edit the photo metadata that way. And then you can also edit your tags. So let's look at that. Let's zoom out here on the map. And sometimes photos have the wrong geotag data. Sometimes you might start doing a photo and you might tag a whole bunch of photos to one location, but in reality, they're not accurate. Like, this is where my wedding took place. If I want to be very precise, the actual wedding was right there where those 1,200 photos were. But notice there's 2 photos that are over here across the water and 4 photos over here that really belong in the same place. So what I can do is I can click on that grouping of photos and click on my map tab, and I can select them. And actually, let's zoom in so that I have the same view I had on my map before. And really where I want these photos to be is over here, not over there. So I'm going to right mouse click on them, and I'm going to edit the location for the selected media. But I want to do both. So let me select both of them. And I'm going to right mouse click. I can remove the GPS data from them altogether. So if you have something that's completely wrong and you just want to make it untagged, you can remove the GPS data, but you can also edit the location. And now all I have to do is grab it and drag it to the right location and then click the green check mark. So that is how you edit a GPS location. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Okay, so you can select multiple photos and you can ignore any faces that have not been tagged. Now, if the faces have already been confirmed, it's not going to worry about those, but any faces that remain unconfirmed or that you don't want to do. So I could actually select this entire grouping and say ignore untagged faces, and any faces that remain undecided in that group can all be ignored at once. All right, so can you merge people together? All you have to do is in the people view, you select the 2 groupings that you want to merge. So let's say that Alex and Alexander were actually the same person. All you do is you just click combine people. And Mylio is going to combine the 2, and it's going to select the name that has the most photos. So in this case, it would select the Alexander name. And then let's say that we combine it and the name was wrong. I could then go and edit the name by hitting the info panel. So just easy as that. And they don't even have to be next to each other. So I could pick 2 groups or even 3 that were all the same person. But when I did my tagging, I made a mistake, or I didn't realize I had created the name. I created it twice. you can combine them that way. So just simply multiple select. And for those of you that are not sure how to multiple select, you just click on one, hold down the command or the control key, command on Apple, control in Windows, and then you click the other one. If you are on a mobile device like a tablet, you tap and hold the first one. That will put you into select mode, and then you can tap multiple, and then at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button that says done that you can click when you want to move away from the selection tab. All right, so that is all we have time for today. I hope this was helpful. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thanks a lot.